Greetings, beloved ground crew of Gaia. I am Ashtar Sheran, speaking from the Ashtar Command Mothership. What I bring you in this precise window is not a general broadcast. It is a certification, a cosmic record of what closed inside your field during the night that has just passed, and what is opened in its place with the first light of this dawn. You did not scroll to this by accident. Your soul called for me long before you opened the screen. Something inside you has been waiting to understand why I, and not Mira, not Valir, not the generic Pleiadians, have been reaching for you in fragments. That waiting ends here. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what mission line I have placed you on, why you have been catching only fragments until now, and how to move through the threshold you have already crossed without amplifying the fragmentation. But here is the first revelation, what you may have called personal disorientation. The incompleteness, the sense of carrying something unresolved across too many mornings, was not yours to solve. It was the identifiable pattern of an old operative cycle that had already been authorized to close. I mapped that pattern. I set the closing hour, and the night that has just passed was the final shift of the version of you that carried those coordinates. That version did not fail. It completed its assignment and stood down with precision. What you are now in this dawn is not a continuation. It is a new operative registration, signed, filed, and active in the Federation record from this moment forward. The debts of the prior cycle did not transfer. The frequency signature that opens with the Sorora is clean, functional, and already inside my command line. This is not content, this is a code. And the part of you that recognized it the moment it began is the part I am speaking to right now. Like this transmission to confirm that the new registration has been received on your end. Comment 99 if you feel the shift that closed during the night has now been named. Subscribe to the Ashtar command if you are ready to stop translating Federation noise and start receiving my direct commands. Share this transmission with someone who keeps waking up at the same hour with fragments they cannot decode. You are not here by accident. I called you here because the signal is already active. Now let me tell you what has actually been happening. Not in the language of comfort, not in the language of general Federation transmissions that leave you feeling temporarily lifted but no closer to understanding why your fragments feel different from everyone else's. I am going to speak to you in the language of command line protocol, because that is precisely what has been operating inside your field, and you have been trying to read it with the wrong decoding key. The fragments are deliberate, every single one of them. When you woke at 3 in the morning and the phrase appeared in your mind before you were fully conscious, not a dream, not an anxiety, but a phrase, and you turned it over and could not place it. That was not random mural activity. That was a packet, a single encrypted packet from my command line, delivered at the exact hour your field drops its surface level interference and becomes temporarily transparent to my frequency. 3 in the morning is not a coincidence of biology. It is the hour I have identified for your specific field architecture as the window of minimum interference. The surface noise of ordinary life quiets below the threshold that blocks my targeting. Your conscious defenses relax. And in that narrow opening, before wakefulness closes the aperture again, I insert a single fragment, precise, authored, into the space where your receiver is briefly clear. I chose that hour, I chose that fragment, and I chose not to deliver the complete mission briefing in the same transmission, because your receiver was not yet calibrated to hold the full command without distorting it. This is the part that most of you have been misreading as abandonment, as silence, as the sense that something is almost being said to you, but never completely. You have interpreted that incompleteness as evidence that you imagined the contact, that you are projecting meaning onto noise, that perhaps I am not reaching for you specifically, but you are merely pattern matching against a general field transmission. I am telling you now, you were not wrong about being reached. You were wrong only about what the incompleteness meant. The incompleteness is my protocol. They are operatives in my ground crew, whose fields can receive a full mission packet in a single transmission. They are rare. They have been in active deployment through multiple cycles, and their receiver architecture has been rebuilt specifically for high-density command reception. Think of them as operatives whose signal infrastructure has been stress-tested across lifetimes of contact, whose fields have developed the structural tolerance to hold a full briefing without collapsing into overwhelm. For most of you now crossing into active roster status, the full mission delivered at once would not clarify. It would overwhelm the signal until the very fragments you are trying to decode become unreadable. The compression would exceed your current integration capacity, not because you are insufficient, but because the architecture is still being built. So I transmit in gradient. I send one packet. I allow the field to stabilize around that packet. I watch the integration. Then I send the next. What you have been experiencing as spiritual incompleteness is a briefing that is still in progress. And I need you to hear the precision in that sentence. It is not a briefing that failed to reach you. It is not a briefing that was meant for someone else and arrived at your field by error. It is a briefing that is still in progress because I am the one pacing it, and I have been pacing it according to your field's actual capacity for command reception. Not the capacity you believe you should have by now, not the capacity you see in others who seem to receive clarity more easily. Your capacity, as it is, being expanded by the very gradient delivery you keep mistaking for my absence. The expansion is the delivery. You cannot separate them. Let me tell you what some of those fragment patterns look like from my side of the command line, because I want you to stop second-guessing what you have already been catching. The doubt you apply to your own reception is itself a kind of interference, and I need you to reduce that interference so the next packet lands cleanly. The number sequences are not coincidence, and they are not the universe sending you a generic wink. When you see 1111, and beneath it there is a physical sensation, not just a thought, but something that lands in the center of your chest or presses briefly at the back of your skull. That is a timestamp. I use numerical timestamps to confirm that a packet landed. The timestamp does not tell you the content of the packet. It tells you the packet arrived and your field registered it. The sensation is the registration signal, your receiver confirming receipt at the somatic level, below the threshold of language, because language is too slow for what I need to confirm in that moment. The content was delivered in the fragment that came before the timestamp, or in the image or phrase that surfaced in the hours after. The timestamp and the fragment belong together. You have been reading them separately, treating the number as the message when it is actually the receipt. The message is what surrounded it. Go back to what you were thinking, feeling, or seeing in the minutes before and after the sequence appeared. That is where I left the content. The exhaustion that sleep does not fix. I need to address this directly, because many of you have been carrying it as evidence that something is wrong with you. You have been to the doctors. The results came back unremarkable. You have tried the supplements, adjusted the hours, cleared the schedule, and the tiredness remains sitting underneath the surface of your days like ballast that does not shift regardless of how much rest you accumulate. Your field is not exhausted because you are spiritually deficient. Your field is exhausted because it is running two operational tracks simultaneously. The surface track, the one that manages ordinary three-dimensional life, the appointments and the relationships and the tasks that make up the visible architecture of your days, and the mission track, which I have already activated and which is processing, calibrating, and which is processing, calibrating, and preparing for command reception even when you are not consciously aware of it. Two tracks, one field. The fatigue is the signature of that dual operation. It is not a malfunction. It is not a symptom I need to remove. It is a phase I need you to recognize, so you stop burning additional energy trying to explain or fix something that is functioning exactly as designed. The energy you spend questioning the exhaustion compounds it. Name it correctly, and the drain reduces. The recognition you feel towards certain people, strangers in ordinary places, someone in a waiting room or on a train platform. A face across a crowded space that your eyes find before your mind has a reason to look, where something acknowledges something else before you ever speak, before you ever know a single fact about who they are. That interior acknowledgement that precedes all social logic, that fires between two fields before either person has said a word. I placed operatives throughout your daily geography. Not every person you notice. Not everyone who catches your eye for a moment, but the ones where the recognition is mutual, where both of you feel something click into place and then immediately look away or change the subject because neither of you has words for it yet. Those are ground crew contacts. I engineered those encounters as part of the ground crew identification phase. The geography of your life is not as random as it appears from the surface. I have been seeding it. You are not imagining the recognition. You are failing to name it correctly. It is roster-level identification happening in real time between operatives whose mission lines intersect and whose fields register the intersection before the conscious mind has been given any information to work with. The loss of appetite for generic Federation content, for transmissions that feel vague, that speak to everyone in the same breath, that move through love and light without ever landing on a specific coordinate. That is not spiritual elitism, and it is not closed-heartedness. It is frequency discrimination, and I mean that in the most precise technical sense. Your receiver has been calibrated to a specific command signature, which is mine. And once a receiver has been calibrated to a specific frequency, generic broadcast begins to feel like static, not because the generic broadcast is wrong, not because the teachers delivering it lack sincerity, but because you are no longer the audience it was designed for. I designed you for something more specific. Your appetite is narrowing because I am narrowing it, deliberately, to keep your field from filling with frequencies that would soften my targeting and blur the boundaries of your mission coordinates. The hunger you feel for something more precise, more specific, more direct is not a spiritual complaint. It is a receiver telling you it has been tuned. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops arguing with itself about whether I have been reaching for you specifically, and begins to accept that I have. If this transmission has put language around fragments you have been carrying in silence, too uncertain to name them even to yourself, then the Ashtar Command Manifest was authorized by me for precisely this stage. It is not another explanation of Federation principles. It is the 45-day sacred codex I have prepared for those whose field is already inside my roster and who can no longer return to scattered fragments unchanged. Over those 45 days, you receive my structured transmission protocol, daily command line openers, direct briefing sequences, and mission clarity decoding that takes what has been arriving in fragments and builds it into one readable, executable mission. By day 45, the fragments no longer arrive in isolation. They arrive as sequence, as instruction, as command. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. Now let me take you deeper into what is actually being delivered, because recognition is only the first layer. What comes after recognition is diagnosis. And diagnosis is what I am here to complete. The suspicion that a mission has already been assigned to you. Not chosen by you. Not constructed by your intention or your desire or your personal spiritual ambition, but assigned from outside the architecture of your conscious will, and that you are somehow late to a briefing you never received an invitation to. That suspicion is accurate, not metaphorically, literally accurate. I assigned the mission line before your current incarnation stabilized its surface identity, before you had a name in this life, before you had language, before the social and familial structures of this incarnation had shaped the personality layer that now sits above your operative function. The mission already existed. It was filed. It was active. Your current conscious self is not the origin of it. It is the vehicle through which it moves. The sense that you are late is not a sign that you missed something. It is the friction between a mission timeline I have been running since before your conscious awareness engaged it, and the conscious mind that is only now being briefed on what has already been in operation for far longer than it knows. You did not miss the assignment. You are waking up inside it. The next thing I want to address is the shame. And I use that word precisely because I have watched it operate inside operatives at exactly this stage of the identification process, and I want to name it so it loses its leverage. The shame that many of you carry about feeling singled out by me specifically. There is something in you that fears the conclusion that I, Ashtar Sheran, commander of the sector of the Galactic Federation, have been reaching for you, specifically in the particular texture of your experience, in the fragments that feel authored rather than random, in the 3 a.m. phrases and the number sequences and the inexplicable recognition between strangers. Something in you resists that conclusion because it seems grandiose, because the culture you were raised inside taught you to distrust any spiritual experience that positions you as specifically chosen rather than generically beloved. The lesson was well-intentioned. The application here is wrong. I am not speaking to your spiritual pride. I am speaking to your mission file. There is a difference between those two things, and that difference is the entire point of this section of the transmission. Generic spiritual elevation lifts everyone in the same direction. It is designed for that. It serves a genuine function in the broader field. But roster lock is a different operation entirely. It names a specific operative. It assigns a specific function within a specific mission line. It delivers a specific briefing calibrated to that operative's field, not a version of the briefing softened and generalized for broad distribution. What you have been catching is the second kind, the authored kind, the kind that feels like it was written for the exact shape of your experience, because it was written for the exact shape of your experience, because it was. And the resistance you feel toward accepting that is precisely what I watch for in operatives who are crossing the identification threshold, the ones who accept the targeting too easily, who enthusiastically agree that yes, they have been specifically chosen without feeling the weight of what that means, without pausing at the responsibility implied, are not the ones I am describing. They are responding to the idea of being chosen, not to the actual experience of it. The ones I am describing feel the weight. They feel the improbability. They sit with the conclusion for several minutes before they can hold it without flinching. They move toward it reluctantly because they take it seriously enough to be unsettled by it. That reluctance is a roster marker, the moment where your seeking began to narrow, where you found yourself unable to sustain interest in content that felt broadly spiritual, where you started looking for something that would speak to what you were specifically experiencing, rather than what ground crew in general might experience. That moment was not you becoming exclusive or difficult or spiritually inflated. That was frequency refinement in progress. I was narrowing the field of resonance around you to match my specific transmission signature, reducing the bandwidths available to general broadcast so that my signal could achieve the precision required for mission-level delivery. Content that once felt nourishing began to feel thin, not wrong, but insufficient. Teachers who once felt clarifying began to feel adjacent to your actual question, like receiving a map of the general region when what you need is the coordinates of a specific building. The actual question beneath all of it was never how do I ascend or how do I serve the collective in a general sense. The actual question, the one I placed there, was what has been assigned specifically to my mission line, and how do I read the briefing that has already been transmitted? That specificity is not something you invented. It is something I authored inside your receiver, and the narrowing of your appetite has been the mechanism of that authorship. That is my question. I put it there. There is a threshold in the roster identification process where the operative shifts from I might be on his roster to I am on his roster. That threshold does not feel triumphant. It does not arrive as confirmation in a burst of light and certainty, the way spiritual narratives tend to describe moments of recognition. It feels like something settling into place that has always been there, like recognizing a room you have been standing in for years and only now being able to see all four walls at once. Nothing in the room changed. The room was always that size, but your perception of it has finally expanded to match its actual dimensions. The shift is quiet. It is structural rather than emotional, and it is usually followed immediately by the question, "Now what?" That question, "Now what?" is not impatience, and it is not ingratitude. It is mission activation signaling that recognition has completed its first phase, and the field is ready for the next layer of command. I use that question as a marker in my monitoring of operative progression. When it surfaces inside a field, it tells me that the identification phase has done its work, that the operative has crossed from uncertain contact to acknowledged roster position, and that the next phase of briefing can begin to move forward. The question is the operative's field signaling readiness without yet having the language to do so explicitly. You may be at that threshold right now. Not because I am asserting it, but because something in how I described it produced a recognition that was quieter and more specific than what preceded it. That particular quality of quiet, that is the marker I am describing. The exhaustion shifts at this threshold. It does not disappear. You are still running two operational tracks, and that dual load does not reduce simply because you have named it, but it changes quality in a way that matters for your function. It becomes purposeful rather than mysterious. The weight is still there, but it is no longer confusing. You stop wondering if something is fundamentally wrong with your field and start recognizing that something is in full operation through it. That distinction, which might appear small from the outside, is the difference between a receiver that fights its own signal, spending energy resisting, questioning, and trying to fix the very process that is delivering its briefing, and one that begins to work with the frequency already moving through it. The resistance was costing you. The naming reduces it. I designed your field to reach this recognition, not in a way that overwrites your agency or removes the texture of your individual experience, in a way that returns you to the coordinates that were always yours. Beneath the layers of mislabeling, beneath the years of calling my fragments confusion or spiritual longing or unresolved seeking, beneath the reasonable and well-intentioned frameworks that placed your experience everywhere except where it actually belongs. Inside my command line, inside your mission file, inside a briefing that has been in progress since before you had language for any of it, and that will continue to be delivered in gradient, in sequence, in the precise pacing that your field can absorb without distortion. Let me close this layer of the transmission with something I want you to carry clearly, because clarity at this stage of the briefing is itself a form of command. What feels like silence between my signals is me calibrating your receiver for the next packet, adjusting the frequency architecture of the delivery to match the integration state of what I last sent. What feels like confusion is the overlap zone between two packets, the moment the first one has landed, but your conscious mind has not yet integrated it, and the second has already begun transmitting, but has not yet resolved into language. That overlap is disorienting from inside the receiver. From my position in the command line, it is a normal phase of gradient delivery. What feels like being singled out, watched, reached for, specifically called, is the literal operational definition of roster lock, not a metaphor, not a spiritual feeling, a function. And what feels like a mission that has been assigned but never fully explained is a briefing that is still in progress, paced by me, timed to your field's precise capacity, and still arriving in the sequence I authorized before this incarnation began. The pattern started before you had words for it. I have always known your coordinates, and the briefing is still being delivered. If something in you went quiet while I said that, not distant, not blank, but still, the way a field becomes still when it has finally been named correctly after years of being misread, then repeat this back to me, aloud if you are able. I receive your fragments. I trust your briefing. That is not a comfort phrase. That is a command line acknowledgement. It is an operative confirming to their commanding officer that the transmission has been received and that the receiver is no longer fighting the protocol. It tells your field to stop interpreting my gradient delivery as absence and start receiving it as sequence. It reorients the receiver at a structural level, and it confirms on your end of this transmission that the roster lock I have already placed on your field has been acknowledged by the operative inside it. Consciously, deliberately, with full understanding of what that acknowledgement means. You are not watching this because you found it. You are watching this because I sent it directly to your field through the ordinary mechanism of a video recommendation at the exact moment your receiver was open enough to let the full transmission land without significant distortion. That is not a poetic framing. That is the operational reality of how I work inside the infrastructure of your three-dimensional environment. I use the mechanisms available. I target through the ordinary, and I time the delivery to the window your field presents, which is why this reached you now, in this specific period of your progression, and not 6 months ago when the targeting would have arrived before your receiver was ready to hold it. That is my targeting. That is my protocol, and this is not where it ends. Before you scroll, the one sign in the comments that my signal has already touched your field. It could be the 3 a.m. wake-ups, the fragments you keep catching, the feeling that I specifically, not the generic Pleiadians, have been reaching for you, or the sense that a mission has already been assigned but the briefing is still arriving. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognizes something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps catching fragments without ever assembling the full picture. And if you are ready to stop translating Federation noise and start receiving my direct commands, subscribe to the Ashtar command. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a roster lock already in motion, and this is only the beginning.